Now that we've edited our audio and we've brought it back in, we have our original mono sounds and we have our stereo sounds, which are usually a little bit better to use. And you'll see on the timeline I have 2 copies of the sound. Well, I really only need 1 of them, so I'll keep just the stereo. And I'd like to work with this sound so it fades in and then it fades out at the end, because I have a very short timeline. But I just want to work with that sound a little bit. Now, notice that this sound is a lot longer than my timeline is. There are 2 ways to make it shorter. One way is just by clicking and dragging the end so it snaps to the new location. Or if I keep it the same length, I might zoom in just a little bit. Make sure that I'm at the end of that timeline so it's precise where it is. And I'll go to the razor tool and click on it right there at that timeline. Then it splits it into 2 separate files. Now I can delete the later file, and I'm left with the sound being the same length as my animation or as my video. So you'll notice that my sound just kind of stops all of a sudden. So there are a couple different ways to work with sound. One of the things that I want to take a look at is how I can see what the levels of my sound are. So if I go to my sound layer here, you'll notice right now it's audio 3. I'm going to go up just a little bit. If I expand this a little bit, you'll notice that I can now see the audio levels. Very little. I might need to expand that out a little bit if I want to be able to see those levels a little bit better. But it kind of gives me a nice idea of where certain beats start and where certain beats finish. And that's something that I do want to be concerned about when I'm editing, because I want my edits to match the beat of the music as much as possible. And you can only edit to the music when you can actually see where those beats are. So that's why I like to be able to open up the audio levels, and of course the larger that you make that particular view, the greater you can be able to tell those levels. You can of course adjust any of the windows to give yourself a little bit more space so you can tell what's going on there better. Anyway, I'd also like to make this audio fade in and then fade out at the end, and there are 2 ways to do it. One way to do it is using what's called audio transitions, and that's probably the easiest. They have this one that's red called constant power, and that means it's one of the typical ones for you to use. And you can click and drag it to the beginning of your audio, and then click and drag it to the end of your audio. Then to adjust its length, you just click off of the original item, and then you can click on just that transition, and you can change its length so that it takes longer to fade in and longer to fade out if you like. Now if you want to be able to control your audio levels in between though, you have another way of doing it, and that's by using keyframes. So I'm going to go ahead and delete at least my first keyframe so that I can actually create this myself. So I'm going to double click on that file, and you'll see up in my source window that particular file has appeared, and I need to give myself a little bit more room here. So I can go now to the effects controls, and it will have that same file. Now I'll go to volume, and I'm going to click on a keyframe at the beginning, and now go forward just a little bit, and you'll see that when I go forward on the effects control window, it goes forward in the main timeline as well. Make a new keyframe. So now I have the ending keyframe. Now I'll go back to the beginning and change my levels so I can go all the way back to -287, which is basically completely no sound at all. You'll also see now on my view of that window, I have those keyframes here that show me what the levels are doing. And I could edit those levels if I wanted to in here. You'll see that I can click on the levels either place. And if I want to actually create a ease in level, so it kind of eases into that volume, then we can do that. And of course now, oops, I hit the enter key, so used to that. If I press my spacebar, you'll hear your audio levels fade in. So hopefully that helps you with your audio. You can also of course create transitions between audio clips, save your work, and go on.